I guess everybody just think we're making a Christmas thing.
Yep. So, talk to me about the Yamas.
The Yamas. Okay, well, the Yamas are one of the foundations of yoga. So the foundation of yoga are ethical, because it's an ethical, not technique, but a process to help you to live a happy life without creating sorrow for yourself or sorrow for other people. And to live a happy life, we have to live ethically. So the Yamas, there are 5 of them, and they are really no different from any religion. Has more or less the same sort of ethical principles. For instance, non-violence. And non-violence in Sanskrit is ahimsa. And it doesn't just mean that you don't go around hitting people or murdering people. It means that you don't have violent thoughts, that you don't have violent words, and you certainly don't have violent actions. But of course, we're not all perfect. So it's to observe ourselves, and when we have those violent thoughts, to realize that this is not a helpful thing for us or for anybody else. So the Yamas are all about your relationship to other people and to society.
Through your thoughts and practices.
Yeah, your thoughts, words, because words can be very hurtful, can be very violent, and your practices. So these things are to look at yourself and, in a sense, to help yourself to use your will to clear up your life. So the next Yama is Satya, and that is non-lying. So it's really to tell the truth about everything, to tell the truth to yourself about yourself, to tell the truth to other people, and if you don't, to have the courage to go back and tell them, I didn't tell you the truth. And anyway, it's the easiest way to live, because if you tell a lie, then you have to remember who you told the lie to and what the lie was, because otherwise the other person will realize this was a lie. So lying does not make life easier, it makes it much more difficult. So truth about everything is a very important thing. In fact, it's sort of the linchpin of all these things, is to be true to yourself and to walk your talk. Okay. And then the third one is called brahmacharya. And Brahma is the creator in the Indian pantheon, and acharya is to walk with. So that's what originally the word meant, to walk with God, to feel you were walking with God. And therefore you're going to be aware of your actions, whatever your actions are. You're going to be aware that God is with you, and therefore you're not going to be unethical. And in yoga there really isn't a sense of sin. It's not you're a sinner if you do something bad. It's just you choose where to live your life on the continuum of good and bad, shall we say. And the better your life is, the more ethical it is, the happier it is. Okay. So then there's asteya, and asteya is to not transgress in that way that you would borrow something and then use it badly, or use yourself badly, use your body badly. So what is going to be good for your body, that you would live that way, so you wouldn't go and drink a whole lot, etc., because the result of it wouldn't be bad. So, and that helps us to think a little bit more about what's called prayas and shreyas. And prayas is when you do something that you really want to do, but you recognize that it's not going to have good results. And we often do those things. We do what we shouldn't do,
Drinking, partying.
etc. Drinking,
Adultery.
partying, etc. Yeah, eating too much, so on and so forth. Shreyas is doing things that you don't want to do. You really have to use your will to do them, but you do them because you realize they will have a good result.
Like your daily practice.
Like your daily practice, that's right, yeah, like your daily practice. So those are the 5 Niyamas. And then there are the 5, those are the 5 Yamas, sorry. And then there are the 5 Niyamas, which are your relationship to yourself. So the first one,
the first ones are external. The
in a way,
second
yeah,
ones are
external, they're outside you, and the second, the Niyamas are inside you, okay? And the first one is cleanliness. And in our society, we all are pretty aware of external cleanliness, having showers, washing our hair, wearing clean clothes, etc., etc. Not everybody abides by it, but we admire it when we see it, okay? But there's many other types of cleanliness. Cleanliness in your speech, without swearing or using bad words when you're annoyed with somebody. That's a form of cleanliness, your speech. So those are your words. And then also, again, your thoughts. Are your thoughts always clean? Are you always happy with your thoughts? Or do you say to yourself, why did I think that thing about that person, etc., etc.? So cleanliness goes through a lot. And then the second one is Santosa, contentment. And I've read many, many versions of the Yamas and Niyamas. And for lots of them, there are slightly different translations of that word Santosa. But there's never been, that I've read, a different translation than contentment. Because contentment is very, very important, to be content. Not to be, what's the word?
So, in other words, being grateful for what you have.
Being grateful for what you have, that's right. And contentment is in the moment also. But there's another place of sort of sitting back and saying everything's just fine and I don't have to do something. And that word won't come to me at the moment. It's also a C. But that is not a good state. Contentment is where you still realize that things will change and you have to respond to those things and accept those things, etc. Okay. And then the third one is tapas. And this again is a very important one. Tapas actually in Sanskrit means like burning. And it's to have passion and excitement about what you're doing. So to do things wholeheartedly. And not necessarily, again, always easy to do, but to really put your heart into things that you feel are important, and looking at them again from the point of view, is this taking me in a good direction? Where do I want to go?
Right.
Yeah. And then there's svadhyaya, which is a strange word to say in the beginning, and it means self-study. So all these things that I've talked about before are only helpful if you really take time to go over things that have happened and see where you have not done them, because this is what we learn from. We learn from our mistakes. And then when we realize that we often use bad words or whatever it is, to decide that we're going to watch ourselves more carefully and see that we don't use bad words or whatever it is, or violent thoughts or negative thoughts about ourselves. These are all not things that are going to take us to a happy ending.
So to be present of your present and related to your outcome, where you actually want to be.
Yeah, actually, yeah. So svadhyaya is very important, because if we rush along and just live our lives from event to event and never stop and be quiet, we will never inquire in that way. We just are living, this was Krishnamurti said, living from event to event without stopping and exploring the vertical of yourself, the up and the down of yourself. So it's just as important to look at the down of yourself, the shadow of yourself, and to get to know your shadow and to be able, in a sense, to put your shadow to good use, because we all have a shadow. And then the last one is called Ishvara Pranidhana, and it's the acceptance that there's a power greater than ourselves. The name that you call the power, whether it's God or Yahweh or Buddha, or doesn't really matter. It's that we realize that there are beings who come to earth who seem to have more of this God spirit within them, but we all have the God spirit within us. But as Swami Shivananda once said, we all have the lamp within us, but the problem is the lamp glass is so dirty you can't see the light. So we all have the light within us. And if everybody in the world could live by the Yamas and the Niyamas, we would have an absolutely wonderful world. Yeah, so let's take ourselves as far as we can along that path.
Okay, sounds very interesting. The other thing I want to ask you is we're talking about your book.
Yes.
What was your motivation for the book?
My motivation for the book. Okay. My motivation for the book was that I have been a teacher for 50 years and shared as much as I can from my yoga background of this philosophy, because I think it's a very practical, down-to-earth philosophy that depends on your action. We can all say lovely words, but unless we act on them, it's meaningless. Words are meaningless. So it's actually, what the word darshana means is to live like this. That's what it means, darshana. To live like this, to try to live like this, we'll say. Yeah, to clarify yourself so that you more and more live like this. Okay. So having shared that for 50 years, verbally, and then retiring, and missing that form of communication with people, and feeling that I still wanted to share it. And it was actually my son, Stephen, who has been my greatest supporter, who I sort of came up with the idea with a book, but then I kept saying, oh yeah, I'm going to write a book, I'm going to write a book, I'm going to write a book, for about 2 or 3 years. And eventually one day he said to me, come on, Mom, why don't you write the book? So although I hadn't ever really written anything longer than fairly short one-page short newsletter things, I decided, okay, I'll try and write a book. And then I said, well, there's no point in me writing a book because I don't have the money to produce it. And so my Stephen said again, well, there's a thing called Indiegogo, and people can donate money so that you can do the book. And so I said, okay. I never thought of doing that. And so we put it on Indiegogo, and I had a lot of wonderful people who donated money. And so then I felt, okay, I don't really have an excuse now. And so I started writing. And it has been a challenge because it's a very different way of expressing things. So when you express verbally, you have to be succinct. You can't go on blah, 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 or particularly while you're teaching asana or philosophy or whatnot, you can't go on and on. Okay. Whereas in writing, you can't be too succinct because people want more information, etc., about what you're saying. When you're teaching, you're seeing people's faces and that, and you can see whether they're hearing what you're saying.
You get more immediate feedback.
You get the feedback, right. But when you're writing a book, you don't know who's going to be reading it and what they understand or what they don't understand. So it's been a challenge, but it has been something that, well, in a way, I would say it's also almost becoming a passion, because now I'm producing other little booklets and things, like one on the Yamas and the Niyamas called The Foundations of Yoga for beginning students, because I think it's important that they know that that's the foundation of yoga, not just the asanas or exercises. So I see maybe more books coming out. I don't know, but we'll see. I just finished the first draft of this book, and I'm hoping to get feedback from people who donated the money to Indiegogo. And yeah, so I will be completing that book in the next month or two. And the little book, The Foundations of Yoga, will be out within a month, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds to me like this is one of your niyamas.
In what way?
Well, one of the things that you know you should do, but you haven't got around to it. So now you're doing it, and you know it will be good, but it's a stretch, a growth.
Well, it's a stretch and a growth at my life, at my age of life. I could just be sitting back on the couch and watching TV all day and be, why, I'm 82 nearly, why shouldn't I do that?
Yeah, a lot of people do.
But this is a lot more exciting. And I've had a very exciting life, and I think it's not easy for me to sit all day and watch TV. It doesn't satisfy the creative aspect of myself. So I hope I go on being creative until I go into another realm.
Okay. So what is the niyama that's about passion?
Tapas.
Tapas.
Tapas is that you do everything with passion and with devotion. So devotion is a very important thing, that you realize that your gifts that you have come from God, if you like.
Yes, they do.
That they're not something that belongs to you. They're not part of your ego.
So you almost have a responsibility to your creator to use your tapas.
Correct, yes. Yeah, so you have to use what you have. In fact, Swami Radha, who was one of my teachers, when people asked her, what do you think, you know, in yoga we believe in karma and that you do come back, reincarnation, and it makes sense to me, so it's my belief system. But they would ask, what do you think, you know, like people who come back with no intelligence at all? You know, what had happened there? And she said, I think they came with gifts, but they didn't ever use their gifts.
Use it or lose it.
Use it or lose it, right. And then you have to come back and experience a life with no gifts. And to me, this whole thing explains, like Mozart. I mean, here he was born, and within 5 years he was writing these huge things of music. And all his whole life he just heard this music and was able to just write it down without correcting it or anything like that. And we all know that he was a wonderful composer. But, you know, he didn't live to an old age, and it explains to me why the saying is the good die young, because they have somehow completed what they came to do.
He was on a mission.
Yeah,
To
I think
fulfill
we
his
come.
tapas or whatever.
Yeah, that we come with a mission, and when we've completed, we'll move on and come back next time to maybe do the same thing, which I think he'd done many, many times, being a composer. And that's why at 5 years old he was able to, it was all there, and he just had to express it out.
Fantastic.
And you know, the Tibetans also believe that. So the Dalai Lama is a reincarnation of the former Dalai Lama.
And we're on the 14th or the 15th reincarnation of the Dalai Lama?
Right. And what the Dalai Lama does, evidently, what I have heard, is he writes a letter before he dies, and he says, in 4 or 5 years, go and look in this area, and you will find a child that will recognize my things, and that is my incarnation.
Wow.
And so what they do is the monks go out in 4 or 5 years, or when they've been told, to this area, and they take some of the Dalai Lama's things, like his rosary and his personal things, and they play with the child. And the child often will exactly take those things and say, these are mine.
Interesting.
And that's how this Dalai Lama, present Dalai Lama, was found.
Wow.
At the age, I think, of 5.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing all of your creations as they move forward.
Good. Thank you very much. Blessings on you.